Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Aldo Pellegrini. Today we're going to do a quick comparison between the Headrush Core and the Headrush Flex Prime. Some of you have been asking me for videos about Headrush for a while now, so I'm taking this opportunity to do a mix. I'll show you how Headrush works and what the differences are between these two machines. If you're looking for a modeler at an incredibly affordable and attractive price point, Headrush is definitely the brand for you because it has exceptionally high quality sounds, excellent amplifier models, and a massive variety of impressive features that we'll check out in a moment. Plus, in my personal opinion, it sounds really good. So if you're interested in finding out how this machine sounds because you might want to buy it, this is the video for you. Make sure to watch the video all the way to the end because there will be a little bonus, the preset that I'll let you hear. Let's go straight to the control panel so we can start to understand what we're talking about. All right, here we are. What you see here on the screen is the editor that Headrush has released for its machines. This is already an interesting point because you don't need to install any software on your computer. The editor is an online editor. Basically, each machine has its own address, kind of like a web address. I don't remember exactly, but I think it's address.local.core if you have the core, or .flexprime if you have the flex prime, or .prime. If you have the larger version, then you don't necessarily need a cable connecting the machine to the computer or to download any software. I say you don't need a connected cable because in reality, Headrush Core, Headrush Prime, and Headrush Flex Prime all have built-in Wi-Fi. So by simply connecting the machine via Wi-Fi, you can gain direct access to the web, the system, and therefore have this editor right there on your mobile phone, for example. The most important thing to remember is that your Headrush machine's Wi-Fi connection is the exact same as your computers or your mobile smartphones or even your tablets. So they need to be on the same Wi-Fi network or the same data network. Let's talk a bit about the differences between the two machines. Now we're also going to look at a picture. Let's start talking a bit about the two machines to understand what connections they have and what possibilities they offer. So this is the Headrush. Here we are. This is the Headrush Flex Prime, a very compact machine. But the first interesting thing is that it already has the same processing power as its bigger siblings. The bigger ones, meaning the Core, which I have here on my desk, and the Prime. What does that mean? This essentially means that every single thing you create on this, or on its bigger siblings, will be completely interchangeable and can be used by every one of these machines. In the fractal world, for example, the top-of-the-line FX3 has features that the FM3 does not have. Same thing, the FM9 has features that the smaller model doesn't have. In this case, Headrush was the first to standardize the lineup in terms of processing power. So all the amps, models, and effects that are in the bigger versions are also available in the smaller one. Or rather, everything that's in the bigger versions is also in the small one. The main differences are that this is an exceptionally compact and highly portable machine because it's approximately 12 to 14 inches in length by 7 inches in width with a dedicated expression pedal already built right into the unit, which is incredibly useful and really convenient, okay? And it features a toe switch, so you can also easily activate many different functions. What it has less of, let's say, is obviously the size. So I only have 3 switches instead of 5 on the Core, and if I remember correctly, 10 on the Prime. And it has a more limited selection of output options. There are no professional XLR ports, and we don't have a dedicated input jack for microphone, which the Core does have. And as for MIDI compatibility and everything else, we have standard mini jack ports to plug in your aux, your headphones, MIDI in, and MIDI out. Now, I'll show you a photo comparing the two units side by side. So here, we basically have a standard guitar input jack followed by an expression pedal input if you're looking to add another expression pedal to your setup. Then we have an FX send and an FX return. Keep in mind, these are both mono. Moving along, we have the two dedicated left and right outputs, which are standard 1/4-inch jacks in this case. And then we have mini jacks for headphones and for the aux input. So I can also easily plug in and play audio from an external media player using the standard mini jack input located right here on the unit. For MIDI, we have the USB port here, which is used to connect the unit directly to the computer to transfer files. You can use it to download your presets, organize and move your presets around, or upload presets you've bought or transferred from other units. As for compatibility with the older Headrush units, the documentation actually states that it's possible if the models you used to create the presets already existed in the older units. But I cannot say for certain at this moment, so I can't give you any definitive information about that because I don't have the older hardware versions available to test. Okay, let's also take a look at the connections on the Headrush Core. The Headrush Core is much more complete because it essentially features all of the same connections as the Headrush Prime. So in this case, you will actually find even more features. Specifically, what you are going to find here is a microphone input, a mic input with its own dedicated gain control, which is a combo jack, so an XLR combo. So actually, I can plug in either a balance cable or an XLR. Then I have the guitar input, an output for the expression pedal, and an output for the tool switch. If you have an expression pedal with the button to turn the related effect on and off, this has a dedicated output for that. It has an X amp, which is an output to control channel switching on amp heads. For example, if you have a 3-channel amp head and you don't want to use the amp's foot switch, you can connect it here and use the Headrush maybe in the send and return of your amplifier for delay effects. And at the same time, you can also control the channel switching on your amplifier. And we have the send and return. For effects, we have a mini jack for audio input, so the aux, and we have a headphone output. In addition, we have 2 XLR audio outputs, left and right, so from our pedal board you can go, for example, to a mixer, but we also have 2 more outputs. Jack outputs, which we can use for FR speakers, or to send our signals somewhere else. We have actual physical MIDI connectors. We also have a standard USB port that is always used to connect your computer directly to the unit. And then we have a versatile USB-A port that can actually be used as another USB host port to connect various audio devices, as well as to download important files or perform uploads, or even to load your own personal system backups. So let's start from the assumption that the 2 units sound exactly the same, because, as mentioned before, they have the same engine, the same soul. What you see here is the Headrush Core. Here it is. As you can see, the screen is bigger compared to the Flex Prime. This comes in handy when you need to do some editing, right? Because So working directly on the unit is much easier. I also have additional physical knobs that let me quickly modify, select, and move directly through the unit's parameters without having to manually touch the various effects on the touchscreen. It's also really easy to move effects from one place to another. I can go here and move my effect before or after. Okay, there you go, you saw it. How I can delete it, or I can change other functions. For convenience, let's take a look at it. There. So in terms of sound, like I said before, the unit is identical. In terms of chains, it's a bit different. I'll explain now. By chains, I mean the signal chain. On the Headrush Core, obviously, since we also have a connection for the microphone, I could set up chains just for guitar, for 2 guitars, or for a guitar and a microphone, or just for a microphone. And then combine the signals in parallel or in series, however I prefer. Here we have various examples. This is a grid for a single guitar, completely in series. This is a grid with some parts in parallel, so there are 3 effect slots before, 4 in parallel, plus another 3 at the end, right? So I can decide what kind of signal, how to manage the signal flow to ahead of time. Or as you can see here, there are two lines, two independent chains, so I can plug in two guitars at the same time. So let's say this is somewhat more restrictive compared to other units that allow us to create a much more customized signal flow. But for this specific type of unit and the price range, I'd say we really cannot have any complaints at all. In terms of amps, effects, and everything else, after the latest releases that have come out, if I remember correctly, at version 5.0.1, I have to say, again, there's really nothing to complain about. I usually print everything out for myself. And if I look at the number of amps available, the amp heads, let's just say there's really something for everyone. From the classics, from Fender to the classics. Vox 830, various Marshalls, different PVs, several Mesa Boogies, Bogner. Match. What was it? So Dono, basically, there's every single kind of amp you could possibly think of. Let's say there are 53 Headrush amp models, 44 from Revolver, which is a completely separate company that basically provides models, plus a wide variety of different speaker cabinets. There are both modeled cabs and IRs, different microphones, all from these types of high-end modeling companies. Then we've got the whole effects section with various compressors, delays, equalizers, reverbs. In short, let's just say it's not an incredibly vast and diverse selection of effects like many of the other competing models or brands available today. Modelers, but still, the quality is excellent. Let's remember that Headrush actually comes from what used to be the legendary old 11 rack by Avid. So we're definitely talking about professional studio quality audio performance here. In fact, this specific hardware unit can also be manually configured in the global settings to 96 kHz for recordings or for importing files, including those that are very high quality. So let's quickly take a look at how this is put together. At how rigs are made. You know I work with scenes, so later I'll show you a couple of tricks for scenes. Here, for example, we have a clean sound. Okay, with a pretty big reverb. You might hear a bit of hum because I'm plugged into a bunch of things. Let's check out the version with a chorus, the Boss Dimension chorus. All right, so you can hear the sound quality is really beautiful. In this specific case, I can already show you something special. So here, for example, if I go into the scene, we have an amplifier. Okay, this amplifier. Basically, the signal goes through here and then continues on. In the previous scene, which was this one, see? We have two amplifiers. This is one of the really interesting features of Headrush. It lets me use a single block, so without losing a slot, let's call it that, the space, because these are the spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, 7, 14. Those are the spaces. I can't add any more effects. So once I fill that grid, that's it. In this case though, with amplifiers and also with cabinets, it lets me split the signal. And here, I'll quickly show you. Let me go back here. Okay, imagine this is my amplifier. Just a single one. Okay, if you listen, the sounds are stereo when it comes to reverbs and delays, but the amp sound itself is straight down the middle. All right, I click up here at the top, you see, there's a 1 to 2 option, and it asks me, okay, how do you want to run them? Basically, do you want 2 in stereo, or do you want to split them between one and the other? In this case, I want to go with 2 in stereo. And once I'm here, this is the control panel where you can see all the amp parameters. This is the amplifier. 1, this is the amplifier. 2, the AC boost is an AC 30. And you can see there's a factory preset. All right, now here, on the model menu, I simply click on it and go select and pick out another amplifier. Earlier, if I remember correctly, I had set a plexi. Here it is, so you can see that now there's a plexiglass 50 on top. I've got a Vox, and it's already going to reamp me in stereo, but not in a hard way. Because after all, a bit of the sound from one goes into the sound of the other. But it already creates a stereo image of this sound for me. Now let's listen to what's there, because obviously it's going to start from 0. And then it'll be up to you to check the right and left volumes. If they're compatible, if they're good to go, because maybe one could end up being louder than the other, right? Okay, let's say I want to... See, here you already have the 2 controls. High volume and normal volume. I turn down light to reduce some distortion and keep it cleaner. Then, if I turn this up even more, it still tends to distort. So I can raise the output. Or maybe I want it a bit more distorted. I give it more gain. So you can already hear that with just this little tweak, you can create a much more interesting, more open sound. Now let's turn off the chorus just to show you. I'm back to having a single amp. Listen, everything changes. Okay, in this case, since I already configured and set up the amps in stereo for the distorted channels, I added another head, which is actually a completely different model. And then I went and carefully selected the cabinets. So let's say I want to add, this is an empty slot, okay? Whenever it happens that you have an empty slot, so your preset is entirely blank, all you need to do is simply tap on this empty slot. You can then choose amps, effects, cabinets, whatever you want to add to that specific slot. For example, if I want to put an amplifier here, I go to Amplifier and Valver, I see the list that's available. On the website dedicated to Airbrush, you'll find PDFs and also the list of the various amplifiers, so you can look up the names. This one's a PV, this one's another one, and so on. Then, after you pick what you want, just double-click, and you've added the amplifier. Now, to delete a block, you see, you go here, boom, and you delete it. Just drag it with a click. Okay, but this isn't a course on Headlash. I just wanted to let you hear a few sounds to give you an idea if this is a machine that could work for you. Here, I set up a little crunch sound. Let's call it that. Really nice. And listen to how well it responds to the pickups. So with a nice single coil, the sound really brightened up. Here I essentially went ahead and added a small effects pedal, a booster, and a compressor to get a much heavier and more intense distortion. And then we move on into the lead here, if I remember right. A lead with a bit of delay. So it's nice and full. And then I did a lead that's a bit more laid back instead. It's a little bit crunchier, using the same amps I used for the cleaner tones. And here too, it's really got a nice vibe. All right, so that's basically what you can do. Obviously, you can do a wide variety of different things. Sounds, crunch, classic, bluesy tones, and so on. One really interesting thing about the Headrush units is the ability to actually capture and profile amp clones. In fact, Headrush has made it entirely possible to, so to speak, let's call them amp captures, whether it's amps, pedals, or even software. But they've also created the option to make super clones. They call them super clones of amplifiers. This allows us to store and organize various unique captures with different gain settings. For example, various unique bass or treble levels, whatever we want, and to seamlessly integrate them all together into a unified and comprehensive amp clone, so into a single capture. This approach effectively allows us to, let's say, accurately capture an amplifier with different gain stages, for example, and therefore obtain a much more realistic response. Then, on the machine, when I go to change the parameters, it allows me to do completely different, even bizarre things. I could profile, let's say, sample or capture a Fender Deluxe for the clean sound, and then turn it up. Maybe up to 2, up to 3, up to 4 in terms of gain, and then from 4 onward. Perhaps I could capture a Marshall and integrate all of those elements together. So I could have a versatile single amplifier clone that goes from a classic Fender style clean all the way to an ultra distorted Marshall style. So this is something really, really interesting. The difference between the Flex Prime and the Core is that the Flex Prime can do this operation directly on the machine. Thanks to the available connections, there are enough to handle the input and output wherever needed, to plug in a microphone if I'm capturing an amp already with its own cabinet and mic, or if I want to go direct. Basically, there are various options. If you want, write to me, and maybe we can make a dedicated video about this too. With Flex Prior, on the other hand, it's possible to do it, but not directly on the device itself. You can do it, but with a computer, so you need to use your own audio interface, connect, and do everything you need to do with a program that's provided for free when you purchase. And from there, you then simply transfer the file directly to the device. One specific thing I really wanted to show you quickly after we have listened to a few sounds is the important topic of scenes, because they are really quite important, especially on compact machines like this that are a bit smaller and very portable, and so you do not have a ton of physical buttons or extra pedals you can press. So using these scenes can be one of the smartest things to do when you are working on the Headrush Core. In this specific case, I have 3 physical buttons. Let's see if I can show them to you clearly. Here we go. 3 separate buttons. Sorry, let me just turn the camera slightly. It's a standard USB camera. These are buttons 1, 2, and 3 that I can control manually. Each button actually controls 2 different scenes. I'll show you that in a bit. Then I manage an effect, in this case a delay, which I can turn on and off. But I could assign any effect to it, like a boost, a volume control, or whatever else, so I always have at least one effect ready to go. It could be a gain boost for solos, and then there's the tap tempo here on the right. Let's see if I can show it to you. Sorry. Here it is, the tap. The tempo works, by the way, on the right, so I can change the tempo of my songs whenever I want. The important thing to do, in my opinion, is to manage the scenes. If you take a look and move your cursor up here, you'll see right next to the Save button, there's an option that says Assign to a Scene. That's what we see down here. Now, as for the Core and Flex Prime units, that is exactly what we are mainly interested in right now, because it is basically the entire row of pedals that we have already activated. Right here you can see an Edit button, and over here you see it is clearly labeled as Scene, primarily because it could also be set to Latch mode, Momentary, or Scene. So when it's set to latch, basically I can control an effect on that pedal, whether it's a boost, a delay, whatever. I can go here, you see, and say, okay, what do I want to control with this pedal? The on and off of the white boost? That's what I can control, turning it on or off. Basically, you turn effects on and off, or you can partially turn certain things on or off, things that can be activated or deactivated. If I set it to momentary, I imagine, let's see, exactly, you see, have more parameters to control. So where are these parameters that you can control with momentary? Obviously, right? But okay. Let's go to the scenes. So as we were saying, the row down here is Scene. In fact, I showed you that my 3 buttons are Scene, Scene, Scene. And then I have the delay and the tap tempo. Like I said, it's latch, obviously the tap tempo, and then you can assign whatever you want to it. Here you can change the title. Here I wrote clean 1, clean 2. You can swap one scene with another, just move one in place of the other, and then you need to edit the scene. So now I'm on scenes and I'm gonna see what I can do. Here we are. Each of your pedals has a switch, state. So switch state 1, switch state 2. So what exactly does that mean? Well, it means I can assign a variety of different parameters, and then if I go ahead and press the same pedal once again, it instantly switches. See how that works? In state number 2, it's like having an A/B channel, let's say, but it works for the scene. So on number 1, I tell it I want the compressor on, the white boost off, the other boost off, the amplifier on, the second amplifier off. In short, I set some things, some parameters. And when I go to the second one, for example, now the dimension chorus is on. Before, if I click, you see, it was off. Same goes for reverb. On, up here, up on the right, you see? Now it's on. And now it's off. So once you have successfully done this, For each individual scene, you can edit and choose to turn a specific amplifier or an effect on or off. This is really important because even with a small pedal board like the Flex Prime with just 3 buttons, I can have 6 different scenes working simultaneously for each preset. And that's actually a very significant advantage because, with 6 scenes, you can accomplish quite a lot. You can play entire songs without any problem. Most of the time, 3 or 4 are enough. Then, of course, on the Flex Prime, by holding down the button for a bit longer, I can access other parameters, or I can decide, no, I don't want to work with scenes, I just want to work with presets, and so I switch. 3 preset bars, 6 presets, but the whole scene concept is much more interesting because I can have 6 scenes, then by pressing 2 pedals, I go to the next preset and get another 6 scenes. So working with scenes is always the best option. The unit is very flexible. I can assign different parameters to the hardware, meaning the physical pedals, external pedals, or the expression pedal. The expression pedal can also have multiple parameters assigned to the same pedal at the same time, and this goes for the expression pedal as well. It has A and B, the A and B states, so I can also assign different parameters there depending on where I am and what I'm doing. Another thing that usually doesn't get used much when creating presets, and even now as I'm making presets myself, for Headrush, I don't use it because it's a bit complicated for those who then have to load the purchased preset. There's also the option here to save for each effect. So as you can see, I have 2 delays because I set up one delay with a certain number of repeats, a certain feedback, a certain volume, and mix. I set up the other delay with different beats and a different mix. In other units, like Cortex, Fractal, Edix, and so on, you can assign specific parameters. So if I want to change the beat division, change the mix, When it comes to this specific type of pre-delay, I can actually manage to do it very easily and efficiently for each individual scene. Can you do this on Headrush too? Yes, that is true, but I actually have to walk over to the unit and save my very own customized specific preset, giving it a unique name. So right here where it says preset, I can choose to edit the name. Okay, I want to change it exactly how I like, and then hit save. What happens then? When you are working inside the Headrush system, a new folder is automatically created within the Reverb block folder, specifically with my preset located in it. So if you later want to transfer this preset to the store or perhaps to another unit, when you go to load the preset, keep in mind that it is important to remember that it will not be sufficient to just load the rig of the preset, which is a dedicated file that lets me find all this stuff and load, say, the IR, because maybe I decided to use a specific IR. No, I am going to have to go ahead and do that. Also, inside of the 11 Reverb folder, I'll need to search through the files to find the preset and manually load that one up as well. Otherwise, the system will not be able to find the specific parameter I decided to change. It's a bit of a complicated topic, but basically it saves the first thing it sees. So you can make a change once and save it, and that's what it keeps. If you then modify the same effect 3 times and don't save the individual preset for that specific effect, it won't find it. So yeah, it's a bit more complicated than usual, but if you want, we could also do something specific about this. So in broad strokes, and hopefully pretty quickly, these are the features of these 2 machines. One is more sealed because the core is a machine that's about 40 to 42 centimeters by 30 centimeters, so 5 pedals, really solid, with a very large touchscreen that lets me work even if I'm out in the studio, when I'm rehearsing, playing live, or whatever. Meanwhile, the Flex Prime is a much smaller, more compact machine, which, in my opinion, is perfect for a home desk or as a backup or spare machine in case something breaks. The cost of these machines is pretty reasonable, and if you can find them used, even better. I found the little Flex Prime used, and it was basically brand new. I paid 280 euros for it. If I remember correctly, 300 euros, and I think you can find the core around for about 400 euros. So these are definitely prices that can be considered affordable for a machine of such interesting quality. So this specific preset you're listening to is made up of 6 themes. Subscribe to the channel and send me an email at guitarskin-presetsformodeler.com. I'll leave the address here in the comments and I'll share the preset with you. All right, I hope I was able to give you some information and a few sound ideas, at least. If you want a dedicated, specific video where I go more in depth into the different effects and various amps, just ask me. And as soon as I can, I'll try to make it happen. Please, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel because I see a lot of people watching the videos, but unfortunately they're not subscribed. It doesn't cost you anything. Hit the little bell so you'll always be notified when new videos come out. Thank you and see you next time. Bye.